I had a friend who had kidney disease, and he was on a trajectory. He was going to need a kidney transplant. That was just where he was headed. And that's kind of a complicated process in terms of his status, but he kind of crossed this healthcare boundary of like, okay, now you're eligible for a kidney transplant. You're in bad enough shape. And I made a decision. I want to be that. I want to donate my kidney. But I wanted to do it in a very private way. I looked at this like, this is something I am going to do to pay back for all the things I haven't done, all the things I intended to do that I didn't do. And this is going to be kind of a big deposit
Yeah.
in the doing good column in a sense.
Right.
So it turned out that I went through this whole process of starting to be evaluated as a kidney donor, and his sister also stepped up. So she was a better match than me. So I'm in this process, and back to this whole privacy thing. I wanted this to be
Yeah.
my own private thing. At that point, I'm like, well, you can't be a kidney donor for your friend, but we do have this altruistic program. That's what it was called, where we match you. You get evaluated. If you're approved to donate your kidney, then we have people that are needed, that are recipients. And this was even better for me. I thought, this is really,
You
you
wouldn't
know,
know who'd receive your
I'm just
your
stepping up
kidney.
and doing something. So they do a CT scan so they can understand what your kidney looks like. This is on a Thursday. I go home and they said, okay, tomorrow's Friday. Our team will meet. We'll get back to you on Monday to let you know if we're going to go forward.
Yeah.
Um, so I get up Monday morning it's really on my mind. I get up and okay, I'm going to hear from these people today. Oh, somebody called me. Oh, I've got a voicemail message. Hi, John. This is Dr. Smith. This is a little hard to tell. We went through your evaluation. When we did the CT scan, we discovered that you have a potentially really serious form of lymphoma, and you need to go see your primary care doctor. And she said, I've already called her. I've already talked to her. You don't need to go to this is not like you need to rush to the emergency room, but you need to see her, talk to her today, and start making some plans to be evaluated, so they can figure out what's going on. So I went from this, I'm going in, I'm
Yeah.
headed in this direction, and I'm suddenly like, whoa, just completely spun around in a way that I had totally, I mean, who would anticipate that?
Welcome to your Wordless podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nick Yaras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now let's dive in. Can you first share with us what was it like growing up as a John Hankins?
For me, growing up, I grew up in a suburban, post-World War II suburban community outside of Philadelphia, on the East Coast of the US. My parents were, middle class. We were certainly not wealthy. I think there was always concerns about money. My mother had a very kind of dysfunctional approach. She always looked at other people and resented what other people had versus embracing what she had. At the same time, my parents had a very strong work ethic. So I always worked. I mean, I had like paper routes when I was a kid, and I just always worked, which was really a good lesson for me in, uh, in that respect. The other thing that I came to realize later, which I just read some different studies, was that I was in a school district that had a really broad socioeconomic range to it. And that was really beneficial for me, even though we were at kind of the middle and lower end. There were families that are were pretty wealthy. And then there were families that were pretty poor, and getting that whole range, and also racially diverse communities. So all of that really, really paid some dividends for me, I think, in how I viewed the world.
And how did you view the world then?
I guess I opened myself up for that. Well, so you have to put this into context.
Yeah.
When I was 18, the Vietnam War was, that was happening. Men went to college to escape the draft. So this was, I graduated from high school in 1969, and I became very focused on the whole anti-war movement. That really kind of defined me for a long time. I became a conscientious objector. Um, and yeah, that just sort of set me on a path of really wanting to focus on doing good in the world. I became a social worker. I worked in a very impoverished community in inner city Philadelphia, and that's what I saw as kind of my trajectory. So that was the start.
Wow. Okay, now we're gonna backtrack to your career in the
Yeah,
IT world for over almost 4 decades, right?
yeah,
35 year in
yeah,
IT.
yeah.
So tell us about that. What's your backstory with IT?
Okay, so I went to graduate school to get a degree in social work, and I got involved in doing research. And I had some interest in computers. Now, again, you have to put this in context. I started graduate school in 1979, and computing was starting to really take off. Like desktop, the IBM PC appeared a couple of years later. And so I got interested in that and really sucked into that. I then got basically a scholarship to go work on my PhD. And so I was in a PhD program at a major university that was just computing and social sciences was a really big thing. It was very research oriented. And I got more and more involved in doing data analysis. And I kind of started to go like, I really like this more than being a social worker. This is really, and it was, I mean, looking back,
Pays well, I suppose.
yeah, it paid very well. There was a lot of demand. There was a lot of prestige. I mean, someone
Mm.
said to me once, that, oh, it's kind of stuck in my head. I'm like, oh, you're a social worker. That is the study and practice of poverty. And it's like, yeah, this is,
What a what a
it's a tough,
juxtaposition. Yeah.
yeah,
Irony.
it can be tough to make a living. Still is tough to make a living as a social worker, for sure. Maybe even tougher now. So the university where I was a graduate student, I then took an administrative position there, worked there for several years, and then I went into the private sector. And so that whole time I was a computer guy. I got involved in the internet very early on, and so that was helpful for my career as well. But and you touched on this in the introduction, so I'll cut to the chase kind of a minute. The whole soulless IT world. So I enjoyed that work, but it got less and less fulfilling. And at the same time, I recognized that I had abandoned something. There was a piece of me, some important values for me that I had left behind. And in my household, so my wife was a social worker. Both of my kids now who are in their 40s, one is a teacher, the other one works with fundraising for nonprofits. So doing good work was a big value in my household. And my wife and kids always looked at me like, oh yeah, well, you made the money so we could afford to do the things that were important to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But I got more and more kind of like I've really on a path that needs a course correction. I really need to do something. And
Hi, I'm Nick Nieras, your host of the Your Wordless podcast. Now, if this real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
I had a friend who had kidney disease, and he was on a trajectory. He was going to need a kidney transplant. That was just where he was headed. And that's kind of a complicated process in terms of his status, but he kind of crossed this healthcare boundary of like, okay, now you're eligible for a kidney transplant. You're in bad enough shape. And I made a decision. I want to be that. I want to donate my kidney. But I wanted to do it in a very private way. I looked at this like, this is something I am going to do to pay back for all the things I haven't done, all the things I intended to do that I didn't do. And this is going to be kind of a big deposit
Yeah.
in the doing good column in a sense.
Right.
So it turned out that I was, so I went through this whole process of starting to be evaluated as a kidney donor, and his sister also stepped up. So she was a better match than me. So I'm in this process, and I back to this whole privacy thing. I wanted this to just be. I didn't really want
Between.
anybody to know about this. I wanted this to be
Yeah.
my own private thing, and
Mhm.
not something that was going to enhance in any way anybody's view of me. I wanted it to be about my view of me. So I, at that point, I'm like, well, you can't be a kidney donor for your friend, but we do have this altruistic program. That's what it was called, where we match you. And this has been very productive in the UK. I think they have a pretty big system for this, but this was sort of a smaller thing in the US. Is there's 6 hospitals participating in this. You participate, you get evaluated. If you're approved to donate your kidney, then we have people that are need, that are recipients. We have a list of people on the list to get kidney donations. They might be in the same community as you, or they might be across the country. It's not somebody that you know. You might meet them afterwards. That just varies, but you just sign up to donate your kidney to somebody else unknown to you. And this was even better for me. I thought, this is really,
You
you
would
know,
know who'd
yeah,
receive
yeah, I'm just
your
stepping up
kidney. Yeah.
and doing something. It's just somebody needs this. I can do this. I'm going to do it. So I go through this whole process, which was about a month long process because they're running tests and different things, and it culminates with you go to the hospital where this program is running, and you're there for like a whole day, and you meet with the surgeon, you meet with the whole team that runs this program. And one of the people is a social worker who does the kind of the evaluation. It's kind of like, why are you here? They want to know. But this is this isn't for everybody. Why have you
Yeah.
decided you're going to do this? And
Yeah.
I explained to her what was driving me, and I completely broke down. I mean, I was just like sobbing through this whole thing. I mean, I was just completely uh, I had no idea how much of that I had been carrying around for all those years. And I just was, it was the one of the most emotionally exhausting episodes of my entire life. I mean, I was just wiped out. So the last thing that day is that they do a CT scan because one of the things they warn you about is like, not every kidney, you may be very good. Everything else may be great in terms of you being a donor, but not every kidney is good for a donation. There's some kind of architecture of the blood vessels that are really important. And some people it works and some people it doesn't. So they do
Mhm.
a CT scan so they can understand what your kidney looks like. Okay, cool. So we do all this. This is on a Thursday. I go home and they said, okay, tomorrow's Friday. Our team will meet. We'll go through all of your stuff. This is the day where we evaluate everybody that's kind of applied to the program to be a kidney donor. And we'll get back to you on Monday to let you know if we're going to go forward. So I'm kind of like, okay, this is kind of a big deal. Um,
Yeah, I'm finally doing it.
yeah, I'm doing it. The
Yeah.
weekend goes by. So I get up Monday morning I mean, it's really on my mind. I get up and okay, I'm going to hear from these people today. I hope they get to me. I hope it's not like 5 o'clock when I go through the whole day. So I get up
Yeah.
and I had put my phone down somewhere and I come back to my phone 10 minutes later. It's like, oh, somebody called me. Oh, I've got a voicemail message. Maybe this is the kidney donation program. Well, yeah, it was. It was the surgeon who takes out, not the surgeon that does the kidney, the other end of the deal. She would take out my kidney. So she explained to me the whole process. So there's a message from her. Hi, John, this is Dr. Smith. And I'm suddenly like, this isn't the person I would expect to be calling me,
Yeah.
about this. I would like the program administrator was a nurse. That's who I'd expect to be hearing from. So this
Mhm.
is a little weird. So she says to me, she says, okay, um, this is a little hard to tell. She says, okay, we went through your evaluation. When we did the CT scan, we discovered that you have a potentially really serious form of lymphoma, and you need to go see your primary care doctor. And she said,
Mhm.
I've already called her. I've already talked to her. So this was not like a casual thing. 8 o'clock Monday morning, you need to go. You don't need to go to this is not like you need to rush to the emergency room, but you need to see her, talk to her today and start making some plans to be evaluated, so they can figure out what's going on. So I went from this, I'm going in, I'm
Yeah.
headed in this direction, and I'm suddenly like, whoa, just completely spun around in a way that I had totally, I mean, who would anticipate that?
Hey love, it is Nick Nieras here. And if you've been feeling stuck, burnt out, or like you're meant for more, but don't know where to begin, I have got something for you. This isn't just about mindset work, it's about deep soul healing, subconscious rewiring, and remembering who you really are. Now, I created a free self hypnosis audio to help you release the noise and reconnect your inner truth. In just 10 minutes, you will feel the shift immediately, I promise. And if you are ready to go deeper, explore my digital guides designed to help you overcome fear, activate your confidence, and find clarity in your next move. They are your next step before full transformation. But if your soul is saying, I am ready, then apply for a one to one coaching with me. This is where we do the real work, transforming your blocks, aligning your life, and unlocking the confident, magnetic version of you that creates wealth your way. Head to the show notes now. Your new chapter starts with one small yes. Now let's get back to the video you're watching.
Yeah.
So the good news is that it turned out that the form of lymphoma that I have is very controllable. It was not the radiologist that read the CT scan. I've since learned a lot about radiologists since that experience, but he wrote a very bleak assessment of like,
Report. Okay.
yeah, this guy he probably has cancer in his prostate or colon, and this is metastasized. That's a bad word.
Mm,
When you're talking about cancer, you don't want to hear metastasized. So this is
yeah.
metastasized to his lymph nodes. It's, probably spread through his body. He's a goner kind of. So anyway, that left me with this huge gap of like, I was going to do this thing.
Do good
I
and
was going to
redeem
just,
myself in a
yeah,
way.
exactly. That's a
Yeah.
great, yeah. I was going to redeem
Yeah.
myself in my own eyes. And so what do I do now? And I decided, well, I just really need to latch on to something. Um, And so I'm still working. This was like 10 years ago, I think 10, 11 years ago. Anyway, I'm still working. I saw something about where I live in Colorado, there was a program that supported people living with HIV and AIDS. And I had had a friend who died of AIDS about 30 years before. And I always had wanted to, he was a very important person to me. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to check this out. And I became very involved with that organization. I was on their board for 6 years. I was their treasurer. I still do. I've done food deliveries. I still am on their finance committee. And so that got me really kind of embedded in. So I had my job over here and I had working with this organization over here where I was able, my job was really flexible. I was able to put a lot of time into that and really get connected with that organization. Then I decided to retire. So I was 67 years old and I thought, okay, I want to do more volunteer work with nonprofits and I want to use these kind of technical and business skills that I've built up. I think that can be really helpful. And I got connected with this organization that is kind of a matchmaking service that has nonprofits that are requesting help. It's kind of project help. Like we need somebody to help us build a budget or write a strategic plan. It wasn't like wasn't like we need somebody to come in and support our staff every day in some way, go get us coffee or
Right.
something. And it was all remote, which was perfect. By this time,
Yeah.
remote work was really becoming much more of a thing. So
Yeah.
I got involved with that and I noticed, along with my whole aging and retiring and having friends that were trying to figure out all the retirement stuff and how does Social Security work and how does Medicare work and how does my retirement plan work, all these different things. And you probably have not been exposed to this, but in the US, as usual, in the US, everything is driven by a profit motive. And so we have these incredibly complicated retirement programs. We used to have, you got a pension. Okay, you worked somewhere, you got a pension. Now it's like, no, you save your money in a tax-free account and then you get it out and there's all these different rules. It's very, very complicated and very anxiety producing. So that was one end of it. The other end of it was when I was working with these nonprofit organizations around budget and financial stuff. I thought it was going to be very, very much, I'm going to show you how to make a spreadsheet kind of thing. And it was much more, and I even said to people, it was much more therapy. It was much more people saying, I'm so afraid of money. I love my work. I love the work we're doing. You know, we've got this environmental program, but we just got a grant for $500,000, and
What do I do with this?
yeah,
What do
I
we
got to
do with
figure out the
this?
budget. I've got to manage this thing. Oh my God, I've never, so I really was seeing all of this stuff around money, all of these anxiety, emotion, all this stuff. And then I learned about the Financial Therapy Association. It was like I just can't I mean, it was like I was blown away. I was just completely floored by the whole thing. It's like, oh, this is exactly what I want to be. This is
This is
exactly
my
what we need.
calling.
Yeah, this is my call. This is my mission. So, yeah, so I jumped into that, and the fact that I had a degree in social work then was a plus. So when I got involved with the Financial Therapy Association, which is kind of certainly in the US, and I think probably as much as any place else in the world, is the real defining organization for financial therapy. So getting involved with the Financial Therapy Association really gave me just this whole structure. So it wasn't like, oh, I read some stuff that people are talking about financial therapy, and I think I could fashion something out of this. This gave me a structure. Here's what it means to be a financial therapist. Here's this
Mm.
certification program. Here's the stuff you have to do, all of these different pieces. And at the same time, one of the pieces was that you needed to have a mental health credential. And so I was like, okay, I got this social work degree. Now I can go back, and I'm a resident of Colorado, so I can get a license in Colorado. So I had to take a test for that. It's like a 4-hour test. I'm sure that I was the oldest guy taking that test.
But you passed.
So I passed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through all of that and just jumped in. I connected with someone. I joined a clinic that somebody was running of a group of therapists, and she was in the Financial Therapy Association. And I worked with her for a little while, and then she changed directions with what she was doing. And then I joined another clinic that was just straight up mental health. I was just a social worker who happened to be a financial therapist, but I was getting clients that were just kind of across the board. And then I just went out on my own private practice, which I have now, which I just do part time. And then now I'm on the board of the Financial Therapy Association, so I do a lot of work
Wow.
there. And I'm very interested in kind of the research side of things. So I read a lot and think a lot about this stuff. Yeah, that's my ideal.
Wow, there's so much things to unpack. Like I love the part when you said how you grew up and how your mother was always saying almost the same narrative that money doesn't grow on trees. That is hard. And whatever we have to save, 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 hoard, 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 right? And it's also a thing that I also grew up in that environment, and it's also one of the reasons why I studied accounting because
Okay.
I want to know how does money work? Like what makes the world go around? They say it's money, but is it really true? So I love when you said you actually infuse your mission, and it's almost like if you shy away from your calling, somehow it'll be turned back into your life one way or another. It's either the universe, something happens to you, or you just had this realization that hey, you're way off course from where you're supposed to be. This is where you need to be doing, and you're gonna pivot back to where you need to go. But not many people are very privileged, or they're aware enough that they can, or they should go to that path, right? And why I like to talk about this is because I've had my fair journey of challenges. So, and I've pivoted quite a few, and you have pivoted too. And I like it when you said stepping into your purpose, but at the same time, making sure that you have the skills for it, getting ready for it, because you want to be the best when you give your service to the people that may need your your service, right? So I think my question here is like, how, so let's say if people are coming to you, okay, John, how do I do? What do I do now that I'm retired with this money? And you're giving financial therapy. So do you actually, put all your cards on the table? What I meant by that is, do you actually go through their, financial position and then give them advice, or they actually come to you and tell you about the aggravations they have towards their financial, and then you give them therapy? So there's two sides to it.
Okay.
You can see it, I
Yeah,
would say.
great question. Yeah, and it's all of the above. I
Okay.
see so I position myself as I'm sort of have three roles that are I see as merged together. I'm a financial therapist. I'm a certified financial therapist. So I can do the therapy thing. I'm a financial coach, which is I view as much more of the practical. Okay, let's add up some
Where you
numbers.
put your money, yeah.
Yeah,
Reduce your
but
liability.
but I'm not a financial planner. I don't. When it gets complicated, there are people that are much more equipped to advise on that than I am.
Right.
And I'm a retirement counselor, so I can deal with people around. I want to help people with the whole issue of retirement. It may be financial, it may be identity, it may be how
Yeah.
do I get along with my spouse, all those pieces. So, and I see
Ooh.
clients, my range of clients is typically 50 and up, but I've seen people, 30 in their 30s as well. So I see everything from people that have plenty of money but can't figure out their life. So it's
It's not money issue. The money isn't the
well,
issue.
it's money is the issue, but it's not having enough money. It's the obsession. Like
Right.
I've one client who is quite wealthy. He's a high net worth client, and he doesn't have much else.
Wow.
He doesn't have much else. He's very lonely, and but his whole day-to-day routine is focused on how do I get more money? And I'm trying to reorient his routine, like how do you have more life? And it's not after somebody has been, focused on I just need to make more money for 20 or 30 years, trying to send them in another direction is not easy. For other people it is more practical. It's like how do I, you know, I haven't really saved enough for retirement, and how do I do that? Which is both, it can be very emotional and very practical at the same time. Okay, so on the practical side, does your employer, do they have a match for a 401k plan? How much can you afford to put away? And on the emotional side, it's like, okay, you want to save. Here's the money you're making. Here's your lifestyle, and you want to save more. So you want to have less money spend, more savings. How does that impact your lifestyle? And how does that feel? I think the key there in many cases is to turn that around from oh, I'm so pissed off that I have to do this, and I'm depressed that now I'm putting $100 a week into my retirement account, and I can't, I had to give these things up, and trying to reorient that to what are your values? If your value is that you want to have financial security in the long run, let's reorient this to you're doing this thing. Part of your money is going to that value, and so you've got this plus over here. Stop seeing the negatives here, and let's focus on the plus, and let's embrace that so that at the end of the week, you can look at this and say, wow, I'm really making progress versus I'm
Oh,
miserable because I couldn't,
yeah.
you know, I've stopped buying the latte every afternoon I wanted to have. Okay, let's figure out a way that you can have an afternoon ritual that
Instead of
you know,
buying a latte.
yeah, is, you make your own cup of tea, something,
Yeah.
So it really, I just see all kinds of different individuals show up at my doorstep. A number of times people have shown up of like, I need help with my parents. My father's retired. He has a small income. He can't manage his money, and he's got a little bit of money in the bank, but I know the way that he's going through his savings, he's going to run out of money, and I need somebody to fix him. And And I used to come back and say, if your father wants to talk to me, then I'm happy to work with him. But you can't parachute me in as your agent to,
Yeah.
kind of take
Save
over
your
your
dad.
father's life. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say the one thing that you can do with me is you can work with me so you can come to terms with the fact that your dad this isn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
What are your boundaries with your father? And yeah, how do you kind of keep him safe without remains within the limits of your capabilities?
Yeah. Within his control.
So I love this work. When started doing it, I was like, okay, this is my mission. I'm like full speed ahead here. We're going to do this. And after I got into it and saw a few people, I woke up one day and I was like, these people are really depending on me. This is really a tremendous responsibility.
It's yeah. It feels good to be needed.
But it was scary. It was scary.
I was scared because one wrong decision or one wrong advice that we give them, then it's, they might not come to us or sue us. Well, in maybe extreme cases they would, but then you're talking about their livelihoods, right? And what's going to be left of them, especially if they're, retired. So, and I love your work too, John. And I wanted to actually circle back on the fact when you said you had a client where that was money was everything to him, and then you a big chunk of your clients, they have maybe not so much, but they just don't have, maybe they don't have enough for them to go through their retirement years. So, and I think the key here I'd like to echo is being holistic in terms of your financial, mental health, spiritual, and everything else,
Yes.
right? And ideally, it should start from when when we're all younger, but often we're not that aware until something happens to us or something forces to think in that direction or take certain step towards changing our trajectory. But then the other part of it, the second part, the person who's actually given up his or her life to just making money and now coming to you at the age of, maybe beyond 50, beyond 60, I want to know, is it too late for them? Because they may be listening to us. And if, I know maybe you're going to say no. So what is your advice, or
Well,
what do you say to them?
I would say, yeah, it's definitely not too late. I think it's definitely not too late. I think that I'll offer kind of an observation and confession about the work that I do, about therapy. I think 70% of therapy is just being there, of just listening. And I think and most of the people that I see are men. Okay. And they're mostly pretty lonely. So the first thing is having somebody who is listening to them and cares about them is a massive step in the right direction. Sorting out all those pieces. And again, it's back to if you've been kind of heads down, this is your thing for 20 or 30 or 40 years. Like me, it's not an overnight process. But I think this is where I get into the whole intersection with retirement counseling, that it ties into you have built financial security, so you can now start to look at what's important to you. What do you value? What do you want to be 5 years from now? You've got the money to do this. You don't need to worry about the money. What do you want to be? What matters to you? Now, if somebody said, oh, I want to buy a 100-foot yacht, I might say, well, you don't have that much money. But if you want to go on a nice vacation, if you want to go sail through the Panama Canal or something, things that you've always thought about, let's talk about that. But part of it to me that's really key in that is values, is helping people to understand their values. There's a therapy modality called acceptance and commitment therapy that I'm a big fan of, where values is an important part of that, and helping people to understand their values and then aligning their actions with their values becomes very powerful. So if somebody says, I really enjoy hiking. That's what I really want to do. I want to stop working and I want to go do some of the great hikes in the Rocky Mountains. And then it's like, okay, but you've got a plan right now. You've just made all of these commitments. where you've got to work 60 hours a week for the next 3 years just because you've committed to these customers or these projects or whatever. What is that? What is that commitment? How does that align with your value? What values are driving that commitment versus, you've explained to me what you want to do, what this value is over here, but yet your actions, you're talking about that you would really like to do this thing here, but all of your actions are taking you in the opposite direction. Let's really think about how to bring those into alignment. And there's, kind of a number of different tools that help you to take that apart and try and put it back together. I mean, it's not easy sometimes to get people to really examine their own values. They're much more seeing their actions. So they've kind of isolated. I mean, I
Yeah.
was a case in point, here I am doing this, I'm this IT guy, I'm doing all this stuff, and that there's this whole part of me
Yeah.
over here that's really about my values, and I'm just kind of shutting it off.
Yeah. And wow, you made that very good point just a few seconds ago on you. It's almost like you separated yourself. Although we know that we have this thing that we want to go out and serve the world, but we don't know if it's gonna, we have to still bring home the bacon, right? And it's also, to my case, it's about tying myself worth to the achievement or the money or the status that I attain throughout my corporate years or wherever I am, my working journey. And but when you said that at whichever point or stages you are at your life, it is not too late. And I think the key also here is to be aware, and especially your clients are mostly men, and men, yeah, they don't open up that easily, and especially things that may affect the way they see their worth almost, because again, how they make money, how much, where and when, it's very much tied to their identity. So I think the work that you're doing, the intersection of it, it's almost like you found your ikigai, right? Ikigai is like the everything, the vacation. It also brings you money, supports you. At the same time, you sleep well at night because you're doing good for the people. So well, I'd like to express my gratitude, John, for doing this and for actually changing your whole trajectory and to follow what's actually true in your heart. And this is what I advocate through my work and through my podcast. How does one plan a successful retirement now that you've built and managed your own financial plan for over 20 years?
Well, I think yeah, it's a long-term process.
Mm.
So having that financial security, there's that whole piece, which just very briefly then is both the saving, understanding what you need to save. And then the rule of thumb is, I think, that saving like 15% of your income, which is a lot, is going to put you in pretty good shape. But we're talking about doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
So this
You're gonna be
isn't, you
cutting
can't.
back on some lifestyle. If I want to buy that car, oh, I have to buy a model lower
Well,
specification.
there's an expression of pay yourself first, of like,
Mm.
okay, here's this salary that I have, but it's really not my salary. Here's this chunk that's going into my retirement. So this is what's here for me now. Okay.
Mm.
And that's just as if I was getting a lower salary. Okay. So you're going to, hopefully get raises as time goes on, but you're always taking that piece off the top. So,
Mm.
so there's that. But then there is, on the practical side, understanding what's the cost of my lifestyle, how much, and this is really a struggle for a lot of people. And I just say,
Yeah.
tell me how much money you're spending. Okay, let's think about how much money you're spending. How much money did you spend last year? Okay, I don't care what you spent it on. Just tell me how much money you spent.
Mm.
And just getting people to not give me I think. I'm like, okay, no, go back, look at your credit cards, look at your checkbook, look at all these pieces, tell me how much you spent.
Mm.
People don't want to do that. So there's that practical piece. So then you can say, okay, now I know how much I'm spending, I know how much I've got, how do these align? So that's a practical piece. On the much more emotional side of this is, and I think this is, retirement can be a beautiful thing. I mean, it should be a beautiful thing. I now have, and this was, for me, I now have the financial freedom. I don't have to work. I don't have to worry about my paycheck. I've kind of got this covered. What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Maybe I just want to be a really good fly fisherman. Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, maybe I just want to go ride my bike. This is
What's the
what,
states?
yeah. What do I want to do versus oh my God, I was the vice president and everybody respected me and listened to me. And now who am I?
I am nobody.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I think you have to really start working on that. I mean, I probably 5 years before I retired had just a text app on my phone, and I started making a list in this. I forget which app it was, but I started making called it this. I had this. I just had this file. It said things I want to do when I retire,
Wow.
and I would just. I might be just watching TV or out, at dinner or whatever, and something would hit me and like, oh yeah, that would be a cool thing. And I had like 30 things on this list. Now, a lot of them I haven't done, but it gave me a vision of, okay, here's it. It confirmed for me, yes, here's this place that I'm going to. Here's the things that I'm interested in that are going to give me pleasure, and I'm going to have the time, the freedom to do these things. I think another piece of that is, again, back to the financial thing of align that with your financial capabilities. If it's, don't set up a list of like, oh yeah, I want to go on a cruise around the world when there's absolutely no way you're ever going to be able to afford that. Understand what
Mm.
you can afford and, adjust I don't care what you can't afford. Here, let's think about what you can afford. And I am convinced for any person, there are so many free things out there that we can figure out a lot of stuff that you can find very fulfilling and very satisfying without spending a lot of money.
Yes.
And I think, that there are too many people get into the mindset again, back to kind of well, if I had more money, I would go, I've always wanted to
Yeah.
do X. Well, let's look at doing Y and figuring that out and getting satisfaction from that. So one of the things about money is that it's very defining, right?
Right.
It is what it is. So,
Yeah.
let's acknowledge that and make it a positive force and not a negative force.
And money is energy.
Yeah.
And if now touching on spiritual sense, well, money is energy. So if you think money, you always gonna think that money is gonna be scarce for you, then you're probably right, because when you're at that vibration, you're gonna be attracting all the negative connotations about money. Of course, it's gonna amplify the slightest thing that you think is an inconvenience. Oh, and then the thinking that you start the narrative of, if only I have this much, if only I have this much, if only I have this much,
I can tell you a quick story on that I had
Okay.
a client. This just happened the other day. A client, he and his wife, they want a child. They were having trouble getting pregnant. They were told, you could do IVF and this would be the path for you to be pregnant. And so which was very expensive. It was like $25,000. And they're not wealthy by any means. They both have, decent income and they're hardworking people. This guy he was saying, yeah, he said, I'm really frustrated because I'm always looking at, gee, if I had more money, I could be doing. If I had more money, I could get that motorcycle that I wanted. I,
Yeah.
I, I wanted to stop him dead in his tracks. This goes right back to the values thing. Okay,
Mm,
tell me about your values. Tell me about this. What does IVF represent? And
yeah.
it's like, yeah, this was very important to us. Okay, so this is your value. You had your finances aligned with that value.
Mm,
So when you see these things that you want to do, is there a way you can reframe this and turn this around of like, oh yeah, I would have liked that, but I made this decision for something that was more important for me. So this is the sacrifice that I'm making. Now I'm embracing that sacrifice.
mm.
I'm not letting this, not seeing it as a loss. I'm just embracing that I can't, I decided I can't do this thing. So I'm putting this off because I'm doing this thing over here. And this is the thing that's really important for me. And what could be more important than having a child?
Yeah,
I mean, this was like not
exactly.
a, this is pretty clear cut.
Yes, yes. It's not one or the other. It's
Yeah.
yeah. But getting people to realize that can be quite, how do I say this? Alarming in a sense, because you're hit with the realization that, oh, this is more important. But because I've worked so hard too, I want to reward myself.
Mm,
Not
yeah.
to say that, having a child, of course, that's the epitome of it all. But then because you working hard and you want to buy something, purchase something, and it's always the sacrifice that we have to make, but it's not a one, it's an all be all. There's always, so that's why you start early. Hopefully those people listening to this right now, if they want to know, if they want to learn, or they want to reach out to you, John, how can they do that? And you can start guiding them in the right
Sure.
direction in terms of their
Sure.
financials.
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is financial-therapy.me, or you can just Google me, John Hankins, financial therapist. If you want to hear more of just kind of my thoughts, I've got a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos on that where I talk about financial therapy. So,
Awesome.
I will do a, no cost 30-minute consultation so we can get to know each other a little bit. Even if you just want to learn more about financial therapy, I'm happy to do those 30-minute sessions. And I just view that as it's no obligation.
No obligation.
I think that people, that step of like, oh, I'm actually going to go talk to a therapist and see what this is
Yeah,
like.
shoot. I'm gonna have to prepare for X amount of money because after that they're gonna upsell me with things,
Yeah.
with their
Yeah.
services.
Yeah. And I'm like, no obligation. If you want to, do something with me, fine. If it turns out that you want to go in another direction, I'm happy to try and find some referrals. If it's just, you want to just see how it feels, that's cool. Yeah. I'm just happy to do that.
Awesome. So, okay, John, we're gonna pivot to a self-worth question. Now,
Okay.
the question for you is, how does self-worth differ from introverts and extroverts in your opinion? And what challenges might each face?
Boy.
Okay, maybe
how,
what do
how
you
much, how much
number
time
one,
do we have?
how well, there's no right or wrong answer, but the podcast usually lasts for about an hour, so
Okay.
you can give a very short, or yeah, up to you.
So what occurs to me there? So
Mm,
I'm more of an extrovert. My wife is more of an introvert.
okay.
I understand the difference. I think that in terms of self-worth, I think for an extrovert, the question that's right here in front of me right now of like, I'm out here, I'm blabbing. Am I just talking to hear myself talk? Is this my own self-worth? Do I need to have somebody, do I need an audience to feel like I'm worth something?
Oh, yes. I love that.
So that's the extrovert. The introvert, I think it's kind of the opposite. Is there something wrong with me that I don't want to have an audience? That I really don't want to be necessarily gravitate towards, a lot of people. My wife and I now, I'm 73, my wife is 77. We've been married for over 40 years. You kind of get into these questions after a while.
Yeah.
And you kind of, think about them and try and take them apart. That's certainly, we have those differences in our own little personal world. We've kind of bounced against
You
both of
basically
those issues.
dance throughout the years of how you guys complement each other's characteristics, I would say. Well, like I said, it's no right or wrong answer. It's more of a perspective that I hear from people, guests
Mm.
on my show. Do they have any differences, or do they actually mean just one thing? Self-worth, is it because if you're an extrovert, if I don't see people, do you mean that I'm not worth it? If for the introvert, if I do see people and people don't like me, because of my characteristic, I'm not this open. This is not how I recharge or get my energy from. Am I still worth something? Do I still have something to give to the world? Or how do I see myself as such, right? If you're being pushed in those situations. So, well, thank you. Definitely the dynamic of a couple where one is an introvert and one is an extrovert definitely complements each other, because if both are the other, um,
Well,
well, that would.
be careful there. It's not necessarily, it's a struggle sometimes. I'm not putting it out there as a necessarily a.
I wouldn't say it's a walk in the park. If a couple is just one, has both are extroverts and both are introverts, and they're mixed, of course every set will have their own advantages and challenges. So thank you for your views, John. I appreciate it.
Well, Nicola, thank you. It was really great talking with you.
Well, I have two more questions for you
Okay.
before I can let you go.
Okay,
So,
sure.
John, what is your heart's greatest wish?
What is a heart's greatest wish?
What is your heart's greatest wish?
Oh, my heart's greatest wish. My heart's greatest wish is that I will, when this is all said and done, okay, that I don't want to put this in the form of people will remember what a great guy I was or something. But when my life is over, I want to have been a force for good in the world, even if it was kind of one person at a time, that I was a force for good.
Wow. I felt that. I got emotional. If you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, John, what would it be?
If I could create a quote?
A quote, yeah.
A quote right now. Oh boy, for my legacy.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with that. Well, I guess it would just be that, that people would just say he cared. He was a force for good.
Woo! Wow, what a powerful episode in discussion with you, John. I appreciate you. Do you have any last message for those listening, tuning in right now?
Well, just thank you for the opportunity to talk with you, Nicolette. It was cool. Yeah, I liked telling this story. It was good for me. I haven't really, this whole story of my kidney donation thing and all of that, I really haven't told that story before. And so thank you for the opportunity to do that. It really was kind of shaped things for me in a way that I totally never anticipated.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate the openness and your candidness upon sharing your story on my platform as well. Well, that is a wrap on our episode today with John Hankins. Thank you for your wisdom, John, and for continuing the work to uplift others. And for our listeners, this has been your Wordless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. If you've ever felt wordless, remember, you are not alone. Your soul chose to be here to matter, and for that reason alone, you are worthy. A huge thank you to you, John, again, and to all of you for listening. Until then, I am Nick Nieras, your host. Keep shining, keep growing, and always remember, you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you again, John, for your time.
Thank you, Nicola. I enjoyed it.
Hi, John. Good morning to you. How are you?
I am well, Nicolette. Good evening to you.
Well, good evening to you too, and good morning to those listening to us right now for the first time and those returning subscribers. I'd like to introduce myself to you, John, and to all of our listeners formally first before we start off. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, before we start everything, I'd like to express my gratitude to you, John, and for saying yes to be interviewed today. And I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about financial therapy. Now, I can relate because I am a therapist, but in the space of hypnotherapy. So I'd like to see and really pick your brains about what is it what does it encompass being a financial therapist? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our listeners today, and then we can get right into our conversation. So, hey everyone, we have John Hankins here with us. John is a licensed social worker and a certified financial therapist. This is a new career that he launched at age 71. The motivation for this reinvention are woven from commitments he made in his 20s and his efforts to be an anonymous kidney donor in his 60s. Now, this led to ending a 35-year career in the soulless world of IT. Wow. Along the way, he discovered the joy of making music and marathon cycling trips through the Colorado Rockies, as well as the sorrow of seeing his father and a close friend succumb to Alzheimer's. Now, the value John will bring to the table today is his approach to how living for over 7 decades has evolved and how this sparked his interest in understanding his relationship with money and finally pursuing this career. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, okay, John, before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, can you first share with us, what was it like growing up as a John Hankins? Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to @holistic.lifestyle_with_Nick, that is on my Instagram, or head on to my website, www.denineraswholisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the Worthy, Authentic, and Abundant Framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path